Joining me now is Senator Bob Menendez. He's a Democrat from New Jersey. He's the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks for joining us. Your reaction to John Bolton being fired?
Look, the unceremonious way that Bolton was fired adds to the dysfunctionality, the whiplash that goes on in terms of, national security and foreign policy. Look at the record. This is going to be the fourth National Security Advisor, the third Secretary of Defense, the second Secretary of State, the second Director of National Intelligence, and the list goes on. And so the Situation Room shouldn't be the place in which the president plays his reality TV show of The Apprentice. So it's very hard for our foreign policy and national security, both with our allies as well as sending messages to our adversaries by the dysfunctionality that the president has in the White House. I'm no fan of John Bolton. He's very bellicose in some of his views, but you need a national security advisor who's willing to give you alternative views and other realities and not just yes men in such a critical position.
Well, I want to ask you about Bolton specifically because one of your colleagues, a Republican senator who declined to be named, told CNN that Republican senators, quote, clung to people like Bolton on Capitol Hill, relying on him to know what's really going on at the White House, seeing him, I suppose, as a non-sycophant, a grown-up, one of the proverbial guardrails. What do you think?
Well, clearly, although I don't agree with many of Ambassador Bolton's views, and he has a bit of a bellicose way about him in terms of foreign policy and national security, but he was a voice that would give alternative realities or real realities to the president for his consideration. And I know that in many choices, for example, like the precipitous move in Syria, which would have left those who fought alongside with us in the lurch, that voices like his were also surrounded by members of the Senate who felt that this was a disaster in the making. So I think there are those, particularly on the Republican side, who felt that he was some sort of stability in terms of foreign policy. There are many on my side of the aisle who thinks that actually, he was a bit of a warmonger. But what this says more, I think it's less about Bolton and more about the president. The president has no stability in terms of national security and foreign policy. He just cut his legs from his Afghan, envoy. His Middle East peace envoy just left. He's got nobody with Kim Jong-un to deal with. So it's a disaster at a time that we have one of the most challenging foreign policy scenarios in the world that I've seen in nearly 30 years.
I know you disagree with Bolton on a lot, but there are areas where I imagine you do have some agreement. Bolton was skeptical of the president meeting with Kim Jong-un, skeptical of the president's offer to have a no-strings-attached meeting with the Iranian president, Rouhani. He was against the Taliban being invited to Camp David. I wonder what this might mean for the administration going forward when it comes to policy and when it comes to people in the president's inner circle who are willing to say, you know what, Mr. President, that's a bad idea.
I think those people are few and far between if there are any left in this administration. I think the only way you survive in this administration is by saying, yes, Mr. President, even if you believe it's a horrible idea, including for the national security and interests of the United States and its people. And so that's one of the challenges of this administration. The reality is that this is why I believe that Congress, under its Article 1 role, is more important than ever before. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the House Foreign Relations Committee, the Intelligence Committees, the Armed Services Committee need to have a robust, vigilant role using their Article 1 authorities to try to pursue a foreign policy that the administration ultimately will limit the risks that they pose in terms of U.S. foreign policy and national security interests.
Oil prices fell almost immediately after Trump tweeted about Bolton. Why do you think that is? What other ramifications might this have?
Well, I think that those who believe that Ambassador Bolton was an advocate of, for example, the potential of an attack on Iran because of its nuclear program and the instability that would create in the region, maybe there are views that now there's less of a bellicose view as it relates to Iran and the region. I would assume that that's speculation on their part, and that's why some of the prices fell.
All right, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of the Garden State, New Jersey, thanks so much. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.